The technological dawn that for years seemed like a distant rumor finally took shape when the Tesla Model 2 emerged like a beam cutting through the darkness of the old industrial age. In the silent corners of traditional factories where worn steel and rusted welds seemed like echoes of a doomed past, something new was beginning to awaken. The deep sound of gigantic gigapresses broke the silence, announcing that the future would not come slowly. It was about to invade everything. The dense smell of industrial oil was replaced by the metallic fragrance of pure aluminum being molded. Technology, once scattered in hundreds of pieces, was now born practically whole, as if colossal bones were beginning to form the body of a new mechanical creature. The revolution ceased to be an idea. It became tangible matter. The wind that swept through the aisles of the production line carried the feeling of a completed cycle. The complex structures, full of weld points, that had defined the automobile for decades, were about to become relics. Watching the colossal mold receive its first torrent of liquid aluminum, it was impossible not to feel the grandeur of the moment. The front and rear sections of the Model 2 emerged with almost supernatural precision, as if invisible forces were shaping every inch. The second-generation Giga casting was not just an evolution, it was a break with all previous logic. The engineers fell silent, not out of formality, but out of reverence. The old complexity dissolved, replaced by an aggressive and impeccable minimalism. There were no more joints. There was absolute continuity. While the newly formed metal rested to harden, there was something almost alive in its transformation. The structure cooled as if breathing, acquiring strength and lightness in a single organic movement. Even before any measurements were taken, it was already evident that the reduced weight, about 200 kilos less than traditional cars, changed everything. A vehicle that previously seemed to struggle against its own mass now seemed ready to leap forward. With less weight, every movement would become smoother, more natural. Energy efficiency seemed to spring from the metal itself. The absence of welds eliminated vibrations, noise, imperfections. What emerged was not just a faster car, it was a more awake car. Structural simplification spread like dominoes throughout the entire production ecosystem. Supply chains, once labyrinths full of uncertainties, were transformed into direct paths. Fewer parts meant fewer defects, fewer delays, fewer bottlenecks. It was as if the planet had finally found a way to manufacture intelligently and without waste. In planning scenarios, costs fell like dominoes. Following an intuitive logic, the Model 2 was about to redefine the concept of the popular car. For the first time, industrial efficiency and affordability went hand in hand, without conflict. And then came the energetic heart of this aluminum machine, the silent, metallic aluminum-ion battery, pulsing as if it had a life of its own. Its promises sounded like science fiction legends, recharging in 10 minutes, 3 times the lifespan, and safety virtually indifferent to the thermal chaos that plagued lithium batteries. It was like stepping through a portal to a new energy era. The stable chemistry reduced risks previously considered inevitable. Autonomy expanded like an endless horizon. Maintenance seemed to belong to another era. This wasn't just a new battery, it was the liberation of an entire paradigm. As researchers tested its energy density, even the most skeptical were forced to acknowledge the extraordinary. The possibility of exceeding 1,000,000 kilometers of durability was not just an achievement, it was a direct blow to the culture of obsolescence. The near-instantaneous recharging seemed like physical magic, a direct challenge to the electrical limitations that had plagued humanity for centuries. Hundreds of kilometers were covered in the time it takes to drink a coffee. Charging stations would cease to be waiting points and become brief stops. It was the end of anxiety, obsessive planning, and excuses. With aluminum, abundant, accessible, and globally distributed, the world broke free from the geopolitical shackles created by lithium dominance. Markets reacted like living organisms struck by electric shocks. Governments scrambled to adapt to the abrupt shift in the energy axis. The strategic importance of batteries ceased to be a political instrument and returned to the realm of scientific advancement. Sustainability stopped being a slogan and took on a measurable form. For the first time, an electric car showed a future without hidden compromises. While the aluminum structure and revolutionary battery defined the body and heart of the Model 2, the interior gave it soul. Entering it didn't feel like entering a vehicle. It was like stepping into a futuristic module. The three-dimensional HUD projected information onto the windshield with the fluidity of cinematic holograms. Routes, alerts, virtual objects, everything blended into the real landscape, as if the road were conversing with the technology. Driving there was like traveling between worlds where data and concrete coexisted naturally. The extended field of vision, spanning almost 2 meters, enveloped the driver in a feeling of an advanced cockpit. Information emerged with the delicacy of a luminous breath, never intrusive, always guiding. The road ceased to be merely a path and became a narrative. There was no exaggeration, no distraction. There was balance. There was precision. It was the first time that technology seemed to occupy exactly the right place, beside the driver, not in front of him. And then came voice-activated artificial intelligence, an almost sentient system capable of interpreting 50,000 commands per second. It understood accents, pauses, hesitations, emotional states. It didn't just respond, it conversed. It didn't just execute, it anticipated. The absence of physical buttons wasn't minimalist aesthetics, but the natural expression of a mature technology. The car no longer needed to be touched to be understood. The cabin transformed into a gentle sanctuary where commands flowed like conversations with an ever-awake digital companion. When the swivel seats completed their first full rotation, it seemed the car was revealing a secret function that had always been there, only dormant. The Model 2 ceased to be a simple means of transport and transformed into a small mobile habitat. In autonomous mode, the interior abandoned the narrow limitations of traditional driving. People could talk, work, rest, or even share ideas as if they were in a multifunctional room on wheels. It was as if the vehicle, previously a static object in purpose, acquired a kind of social life of its own. The sensors, attentive to every movement, ensured absolute safety while the space reinvented itself. What had previously seemed cramped now assumed functions that no one had imagined. The Model 2's internal modularity transformed the car into an adaptable organism. In the morning, it functioned as an office. In the afternoon, it became a meeting room. At night, a place to relax. The fragmented and fast-paced urban life found an intelligent and itinerant refuge there. The idea of going from one point to another became too small for what Tesla intended. Commuting ceased to be merely logistical. It became an experience. What was once time lost in traffic became time lived, productive time. It was the end of hours wasted in urban immobility. It was the birth of functional mobility. This revolution placed the Model 2 on a unique level, almost like a physical condensation of all the great technological transformations that came before. Its lightweight structure resembled early airplanes. Its advanced battery recalled the space race. The immersive interior seemed to have come from unattainable fictions. The car was simultaneously machine and metaphor, engineering and art, promise and reality. Entire companies began to revise their plans upon realizing that the competitive landscape had been irreversibly redrawn. Tesla, once again, shifted the horizon. Each innovation brought shockwaves that swept through the global economic fabric. The projected price of $25,000 seemed an almost insolent challenge to traditional automakers, trapped in old and expensive structures. The Model 2 proved that efficiency didn't have to go hand in hand with technological exclusivity. The democratization of innovation finally took shape, gained density and propulsion. Access ceased to be a privilege. It became a central part of the proposition. It was no longer a car for the few. It was a game changer for many. Urban planners were beginning to imagine completely different streets. Thousands of light, silent, and efficient vehicles could reduce urban noise, emissions, and collisions. The daily chaos of traffic was giving way to intelligent flows. Public infrastructure was under less pressure, as fast charging and long-lasting batteries reduced queues and overloads. Even large corporate buildings were rethinking their parking lots, imagining more vibrant, connected, and dynamic spaces. Urban mobility wasn't just evolving, it was being rebuilt from scratch. Sustainability ceased to be merely an attribute and became the core of the narrative. Abundant and recyclable aluminum drastically reduced environmental impact. Simplified production decreased industrial waste. The extended lifespan of batteries prevented the premature disposal of electronic waste. Each component seemed to have been designed with the distant future in mind, as if engineers were looking not at the next decades, but at the next centuries. For the first time in a long time, The planet did not seem to be competing for space with technology. It seemed to be walking alongside it. The comparative charts between the old and new models coldly showed what everyone had already suspected: a vehicle made up of only two large structural parts versus dozens or hundreds in past generations. A weight difference that altered everything, from wear and tear to energy consumption. Comparing the Model 2 to previous cars seemed unfair. They belonged to a fragmented world, it to an integrated world. The metrics didn't capture the depth of the change, but they made it clear that something extraordinary was underway. Each keyword associated with the Model 2 seemed part of a technological manifesto: gigacasting 2.0, aluminum battery, 3D HUD, voice AI, internal modularity, energy efficiency, advanced security. These terms ceased to be isolated concepts and became chapters of the same industrial epic. The Model 2 was the whole book. It didn't follow trends. It originated them with irresistible force. It was, essentially, the first tangible form of a future that for decades had existed only in the imagination. And as the world watched, something even greater became evident. The Model 2 was not just a product, it was a civilizational milestone. It questioned how we produce, how we consume, how we move, and even how we coexist. It redefined the automobile not as a tool, but as an extension of modern life. It was a machine, yes, but also a cultural, social, and economic transformation condensed into aluminum, electricity, and software. Technology shaping behavior and behavior shaping technology. A perfect, efficient, and impactful cycle. As more details were revealed, it became clear that the Model 2 did not belong to the present. It had been designed for a tomorrow that is still being imagined. Its structural choices, its energy approach, its almost sensory interior, everything seemed to point to many decades ahead, as if the engineers had found a way to bend the technological timeline. While the present struggled to comprehend it, the Model 2 already naturally dominated the future. On the streets, in laboratories, and in global discussions, the impact of the vehicle spread like ripples on a deep lake. Analysts tried to predict scenarios, but each prediction seemed incomplete. Politicians sought to adjust legislation, but the speed of innovation surpassed bureaucratic rigidity. One certainty remained: the automotive industry would never return to what it was. Each automaker, each supplier, each country would have to choose between embracing the new era or being dragged along by it. The Model 2 had become the new ground zero for the sector. And amidst all this, the average citizen emerged as the protagonist. Having access to a futuristic vehicle at an affordable price seemed like a fantasy until recently. But there it was, real, concrete, about to hit the streets. Families who never imagined seeing a 3D HUD could now experience it daily. Workers who depended on fast and accessible transportation finally saw a sustainable alternative. The future ceased to be a privilege. It became a matter of belonging. Adaptation would be slow, but unavoidable. Traditional workshops would need to relearn everything, dealing with entire structures molded from a single piece, with virtually eternal batteries, with autonomous systems that would make decisions for themselves. Technical schools would reformulate courses. Professionals would have to reinvent themselves from scratch. The educational impact would be as profound as the industrial one. The Model 2 inaugurated a global wave of retraining, advancing at the same pace as its own evolution. It was a chain reaction revolution, impossible to contain or reverse. In homes, offices, and classrooms, talking about the car became as common as discussing smartphones in the previous decade. The Model 2 ceased to be just another Tesla launch and became a cultural phenomenon. Memes emerged, detailed analyses exploded on the internet, political debates arose. Everyone wanted to understand the meaning of that light and compact machine. There was something different about it, something almost metaphysical. The collective feeling was of witnessing a historical moment in real time. And, as with every great human change, philosophical questions arose. What does freedom represent when time lost in traffic can be recovered? What is mobility when the car transforms into a living room, an office, a resting capsule? What does sustainability mean when clean and abundant energy replaces scarce and toxic materials? The Model 2 didn't answer directly. It simply existed and forced the world to search for meaning. In production, specialized robots circulated around the gigapresses like metallic priests performing an ancient ritual. Molten aluminum flowed through the giant molds in a luminous stream, creating the structure in seconds. It was a spectacle that paralyzed those who observed, an industrial ballet where the future was born in silence, without waste, without flaws, without hesitation. While the public was impressed by the technical aspects, Tesla was already thinking beyond that. The Model 2 wasn't just the brand's next car, it was the beginning of a new manufacturing philosophy. Smaller factories, more agile, automated processes, independence from critical suppliers. The vehicle symbolized the consolidation of decades of research kept secret. This research now took shape in aluminum, graphene, silicon, code, sensors, and holographic displays. The interior ergonomics were so refined that they seemed to defy the classic rules of automotive design. Nothing was superfluous, nothing was lacking. The interior conveyed lightness and invited the occupant to enter, breathe, and simply exist, whether driving or not. The cabin ceased to be merely a technical space and transformed into an extension of daily life. The boundary between being stationary and being in motion disappeared. The experience gained unprecedented depth, not only visual but sensory, immersive, almost meditative. Voice-activated artificial intelligence evolved to the point of transforming the car into a constant presence. Not a cold assistant, but someone attentive. It perceived patterns, understood habits, adjusted preferences, suggested routes, monitored the weather, and anticipated needs before they were even expressed. It was as if the machine had acquired empathy, as if it finally understood that driving was not just about commuting, but also about emotional state. Small daily adjustments transformed simple journeys into personalized experiences. From the outside, the aerodynamics looked like the work of a sculptor. Smooth lines, precise curves, a total absence of exaggeration. The form spoke volumes. The car, even when stationary, conveyed momentum. It always seemed poised to project itself into tomorrow. The integration between aesthetics and function was absolute. Nothing was superfluous. Every detail served a real purpose. Reduced fuel consumption, stability, interior silence. It was as if the wind had participated in the design. And then came the silence. When switched on, the Model 2 didn't roar, it simply awakened. The internal systems activated like synapses in an electronic organism. The absence of noise wasn't emptiness, it was meaning. It represented a new era, where power was measured by precision, not noise. It was a silence that echoed a clear message. The future has arrived. The light and immediate acceleration seemed to defy instinct. The car responded as if it read the driver's intention. There was no effort, no pause. The movement was continuous, fluid, natural. It seemed as if the Model 2 was driving the driver, and not the other way around. A technological communion. The lightweight structure transformed curves into smooth gestures. The energetic stability turned deviations into playful maneuvers. The car ceased to be a tool and became a physical extension. On the illuminated avenues, the Model 2 glided by with a futuristic aura. The light reflected off its aluminum as if bathing an extraterrestrial surface. Those who looked out the window saw not just a car, they saw a fragment of tomorrow. Children pointed, adults filmed, engineers watched attentively. Urban culture absorbed it as it absorbs all symbols of great transition.